Hello and welcome to the Today's Homeowner Weekly Podcast. We're here to help you with the challenges we all face as homeowners. I'm Danny Lifford.
And I'm Joe Truini. And each week, Danny and I are here on the podcast to answer any and all home improvement questions.
And we want to hear from you. Send us your questions or comments at todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Today's Homeowner Podcast is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
The sound of you doing is music to our ears. Order on the Home Depot app and get convenient delivery, so you don't have to stop doing when you need something. The Home Depot app, how doers get more done.
This week we'll talk about the proper foundation you need for your backyard shed. Also a great painting tip from an experienced painter and a regular listener to our show. Also, we have a fantastic tip on how to check to see if a fluorescent bulb is good. That's a great one. I've never heard that tip before. Also, what comes first, the new floor or the baseboard? Joe, what about that simple solution?
Got an easy, accurate way to take inside measurements when using a tape measure. You know, when you're measuring between two surfaces, sometimes you have to bend the tape, and then it's almost impossible to get an accurate reading. So I've got a simple solution to solve that problem.
Oh, boy, that's something that you end up doing all the time when you're trying to, measure something between two areas.
Right.
So I'm going to certainly be listening to that. Hey, let's get started here.
Well, Danny, we made it to March here in New England. March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb, supposedly. In South Alabama, where Danny lives, what is it? March comes in like a black and red fish, and it goes out. It goes out like a pineapple and mayonnaise sandwich,
Wow.
One of Danny's favorites. But regardless of where you live and what you're eating, chances are by the time spring rolls around, we'll all be working on our outdoor projects.
Joe, what about those personal projects you got around your house there? When you start thinking of spring, even though it might not be feeling like spring there
Right.
in the Northeast area. But what do you have up your sleeve, some of the things that you're always planning something?
Well, I had mentioned last week that I was working on building a new desk that I'm going to be moving into my new office. But when I was building a new desk, I thought, well, I'll just build the desk 45 inches high. So I don't need a standing desk. I'll just build one. So that's what I'm in the middle of doing. In fact, I'm putting in the slide for the keyboard now. I went to buy keyboard slide hardware. You can actually buy hardware. Mm-hmm. And then I looked at the price and I thought, well, I'm not going to spend $80 or $90 for a slide hardware. So I had some full extension slides. So I'm just making one. I'm basically building a narrow drawer. Imagine a drawer that's only 3 inches deep, and I'm going to flip it upside down and install it. Then I'm also working on is a lot of sort of maintenance projects. So we're cleaning up after a long winter. We have a wood-burning fireplace, which we love, and we use it pretty often all winter. And in the back, and I think this is pretty common, certainly common here in New England, in the back on the floor, the hearth, there's a little cast iron door that you open up and you push the ashes down there, and it goes down. In our case, it goes down into the garage. And there's a little door, and you open up and you vacuum it out. So I'll have to do, that's a job I don't particularly care to do, but vacuum out all the ash. So I think this is a good time of year where people are going to be maybe not doing spring cleaning yet, but certainly getting started on those spring projects.
Well, some of my projects around the house, I've been influenced by my 3 days at Disney World.
Oh, that's right. You took the grandkids to Disney World, right?
Yes, it was a wonderful, wonderful time. Great weather, and of course, I wore out all my shoes. I walked so much, and also my wallet is pretty beat up, pretty bad there too. But one thing is they keep that place up. Well, you go no matter where you go, and so that's what I'm doing on some of my projects. Is influenced by Disney. I've been in my house now. This is my 2-year anniversary being in my home.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And but you have little things like in my bathroom, the baseboards, banged up a little bit there. I guess we're mopping or whatever. So I thought, perfect time to go ahead, make sure they're good and clean, and put a fresh coat of paint on those, and then just go around with that paintbrush. You can always find a little place here and a little place there to get it back up to what it looked like when I moved in. And that's one of those things that's hard to make yourself do, but that's just how my mind works, I guess. I just want to go back and make it look like it did when I first moved in. Even though, with just me and my wife, it's not banged up too bad in there. My grandson's got a few marks here and there that he's left behind the way there. But
I'm sure he did. Yeah.
But a few of those, also the raised beds. I've got these great raised bed gardening things.
Yeah.
So we're clearing out everything there, churning that soil up really, really good, and putting a few more amendments in it and getting that ready to plant. And my wife Sharon has been already has some of the seeds and got little plants that she's got up about 5 or 6 inches. So all of that's ready to plant now. So a little bit of that's going to take place. So hopefully I can do some of the other things and she can do the actual planting. I kind of like the harvesting part.
I know what you mean.
The planting and the watering and all that just doesn't have as much gratification for me as going out there and picking all of the stuff. So I'll do that. Let her do the first part of it.
But she loves it. Sharon loves getting out there. First of all, it's a beautiful spot where Danny built this house and on a river, and yet in the front yard we got those planters. I know Sharon loves going out there. Last time I was down there, I stole a couple of your kumquats.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We can't grow kumquats here in Connecticut. If anybody doesn't know what those are, they're very small oranges. It's the only citrus where the skin is sweeter than the fruit.
That's right.
Inside.
Yeah.
And the inside is really tart, which I like, but the outside is amazing how sweet that is. Imagine like the outside is sweet, but the inside. But anyway, those are delicious. And I was picking them by the handful. So if there's a big bare spot, Sharon can blame me. But I wanted to mention that when I heard you're going to Disney World, I found a couple of facts about Disney World that I thought was fascinating.
All right.
If you spent one night in each of the hotel rooms in Disney, it would take you 68 years to stay in every single room.
Oh, I believe it.
A lot of hotels.
I'm amazed at how large of a footprint that is. I also found out, I was wondering about the capacity because there were so many people there, I felt like they've got to be reaching their capacity. Just at the one Disney park, the Magic Kingdom, 90,000 is the capacity of that one park.
Were you close to that, do you think? Does it seem like was it pretty crowded?
I would probably guess it was in the neighborhood of 60 to 70.
It's amazing.
So it wasn't, they say right around the holidays is when it gets the most, but there's still plenty of people there.
And you were talking about, the cost of getting to Disney World. Last time I went, I was surprised how much it cost, but when you leave, you don't feel like you've been ripped off.
No, not at all. That's true.
You really get your money's worth because it's so well maintained and there's so many people working there. The admission, when it opened, I think it opened in 1971. The opening day admission was $3.50.
Well, Joe, it has gone up a bit.
I think it went up. I think it's beyond the $5 mark.
Yeah, I think it's like
$105.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and nobody goes alone, right? So when you go, you're usually with a family, so it ends up being like $500 or $600 a day. And this I saw, which I thought was really interesting, which I had no idea. Apparently, there are dead people who have died have had their ashes scattered. Their wish was to have their ashes scattered at Disney World. Now, this is not like an official thing. People just bring them and scatter them. And there are like thousands of people have done that where Disney has actually designed and have a special vacuum that they go around with to find and collect all these ashes. People are scattering the ashes of loved ones at Disney World. I guess they figure it's the happiest place on the earth. Let's scatter grandma's ashes there. Isn't that crazy? And also, one last thing, Disney World is the largest single-site employer in the entire U.S. That's kind of interesting, right?
Yeah, I think something like 26,000 acres or something like that. And they've got a little more room to go, but it is a busy place.
Yeah,
exactly.
But they're very well, it's very well manned. And then one last thing. There are 200 pairs of sunglasses lost every day.
Oh, I believe that.
200 pairs.
Yeah. I believe that 100%.
I wonder what they do.
Oh, yeah. And no telling how many cell phones that get stacked up in the corner as well. So.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, we had a great time at Disney, and it is well worth it. It is expensive, but a lot of fun, especially when you see the faces of those grandkids. That makes it all worthwhile. Right now, we're going out to visit with Teresa out in California. Teresa, welcome to the show, and tell us what's going on around your house there.
Well, I purchased one of the Lifetime sheds and the plastic ones, and I decided to put the wood foundation because they said you could either do cement or wood. And I was wondering if I should buy the treated wood or should I paint the wood? I noticed that it's kind of hard to find the plywood in treated. It doesn't look like it's available. I didn't even know. but it doesn't look like it is. So that's my question.
Okay, sure. You can find the treated plywood. Maybe it's a little harder, like everything seems a little harder nowadays to find for different materials that you need around your house. But you would want to go with all treated everything. And about how high off the ground do you think the actual floor will be?
Well, that was the other question, is they kind of say you can build it onto the ground, but I was going to put it up on deck block.
Okay.
So I think those are about that was my other question, is if I should put it on the deck block.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, we have a situation here in that Joe Truini wrote one of the best shed books in America. He did a lot of research on it.
Oh.
And so I'm going to let Joe answer that part of the question because he's the one that knows. Joe knows. You get it? Go.
I get that. All right, Teresa. Well, Danny's right. You should only use pressure-treated lumber anywhere near the ground, whether it's on concrete blocks or not. The whole floor frame should be, meaning the joist, the perimeter joist, the floor joist, should all be pressure-treated lumber. You can get away with just standard plywood for the floor if it's up off the ground, but I would recommend if you can get the pressure-treated, you can get it in square edge, you can get it tongue and groove. It's not cheap. You want 3/4 inch. Home Depot sells one that's called underlayment pressure-treated plywood. It's tongue and groove. It's probably about $75 a sheet if you can even find it. But how big is this? How big is this shed? You might not need too many.
It's 12.5 by 8.
12.5 by 8. All right, so you wouldn't need that much. But even if you use square edge as opposed to tongue and groove plywood, that would be fine. As far as staining it, I wouldn't. If it's pressure-treated, if you're going to put any finish on it, I would stain it. I would not paint it. But for the understructure, you're not going to see it anyway. There's no real reason to stain it. If you want a little extra protection, you can get some clear wood preservative, water repellent wood preservative. But again, if it's up off the ground at least 4 or 5 inches so that air can circulate under the shed, I don't think you really even need to stain it at that point.
Okay. I know how you always say to paint like your trim before you put it up. So
right, exactly. Yeah.
But
well, if you were gonna stain it, wouldn't recommend painting it, but if you were going to stain it or put a clear preservative, then yes, absolutely do it before you build it, and especially any fresh cut ends, because when you cut a pressure-treated piece of lumber, the pressure-treated chemicals don't soak all the way to the center. So when you cut it, it's always a good idea to treat those cut ends, those freshly cut ends.
Okay, all right.
16-inch on center, too. Put those joists no more than 16 inches on center, the floor joist.
Okay.
And Teresa, I wanted to ask you, have you already assembled the shed, or you still have it in the box?
It says not to assemble it until you have your foundation.
Good. That's what I thought.
Yeah, apparently it has to be super level.
Well, be very patient. There are a lot of parts in that box there, and I have assembled one of these before. Once you get in the groove, it goes pretty quickly, but it can be a little overwhelming right at the very start there. Just make sure you have a good socket set, and if you have a cordless drill, a lot of times using it with your sockets will kind of speed up the process a little bit, but just relax, put you some nice music on so that you can know that you're going to spend a little time on it.
Okay.
All right.
Be patient, huh?
Well, exactly. Teresa, thanks so much for being part of the show, and we appreciate you calling us. And if we can help you any other way, let us know. And best of luck on putting that shed together.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate your show.
Oh, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Thank you. Joe, I'll tell you what, we've had so much activity on today's Homeowner Hotline. We can go ahead and see if we can't pack a few of these calls in right now and help out a few homeowners.
Hi, Danny. How you doing? This is Larry. I'm calling from Polo, Illinois, and my question is there any way to check with a voltometer of 4-foot-long fluorescent light bulb with a voltometer? Is there any way to check it, or it's good or bad? I got ones with black on the ends, and they work. I got one with no black on the ends. It doesn't work. Thanks, Danny.
Well, what a great question. I don't think we've ever had that question before, but boy, I think people are leaning into the radio right now wanting to know the answer to this because, even though fluorescents are starting to fade away, there's still millions of them out there. People are replacing them so quickly with LED lights in a very positive way. But, it's interesting for Larry to say that, because the old days you would go, okay, it's got a little black on the end, throw it away. Which that is a whole nother thing. Disposing of fluorescent light bulbs is not an easy thing either. But, and then for him to say he has one that's not working, that has no black on it, well, Joe, I just don't know. Can you check that with an ohm meter to make sure that that bulb is right instead of just, finagling, putting one in, putting another in? What do you say on that?
Yeah, you can use a multimeter, an ohm meter. If you're using a multimeter, which most people have, if they're going to have any kind of diagnostic tool, electrical diagnostic tool, just rotate the knob over to the ohm setting, and you take the 2 probes on the end of the wire, and you touch them to the 2 metal prongs sticking out the end of the light bulb, right? The fluorescent bulbs have the 2 prongs sticking out. Just touch it, and you should get an ohm reading, usually about 2 ohms or so. If you don't get anything, then the bulb is dead. Now, Larry mentioned something that he has like a black patch or a black mark on it. That usually indicates that the filament's burned out. Now, he said he has a black one that the bulb's still working, so it might be working, but I suspect maybe it's not quite burned out completely. The filament's burned out completely. But so there's a way of testing it. Again, you just use the ohm setting and put those 2 probes onto the prongs and make sure you get a reading.
Good. All right. There you go, Larry. Again, great question. If you'd like to send us a question, ask us a question, you can do so right now. The Today's Homeowner Hotline is open right now, 800-946-4420.
From installing a smart garage door opener, to installing a bathroom faucet, to removing a tree, the Home Depot believes you can do anything, especially the things we have how-to guides for. Visit HomeDepot.com for thousands of tips, workshops, and ideas for projects, big and small. The Home Depot app, how doers get more done.
Today's Homeowner is brought to you by the Home Depot. How doers get more done.
And welcome back to the Today's Homeowner Radio Show, where it's time for our Best New Product segment, brought to you by the Home Depot, how doers get more done. Now, if you've painted the inside of your home before, you know the frustrations. The walls just don't stay looking new for very long because of scuffs or stains generated by those active children or maybe some of the pets. Now, you have to apply multiple coats to cover up what's already on the walls, and the paint takes forever to dry, so picture frames and doors can stick to the paint, creating even more of a mess. That's why Behr has introduced the Dynasty line of interior stain blocking paint and primer. It features their most advanced stain resiliency and scuff resistance to keep the surfaces of your project looking newer, longer, and it's guaranteed to hide in just 1 coat, and it's available in over 1,000 colors. Plus, the fast drying formula can get you back to using your spaces a lot quicker without tacky surfaces because it cures just after 4 hours, so drawers and doors don't stick together. So if you have a busy home that needs painting, this is a must-have. You can find out more about Behr Dynasty Interior Stain Blocking Paint and Primer by going to HomeDepot.com. They're always working on those paints, trying to improve them more and more, and maybe they've gotten that figured out pretty well, and it sounds like a great way to go so that you're not having to put multiple coats on.
Right, yeah.
Now it's time for our podcast question of the week. We'd love to get your question. All you have to do is go to todayshomeowner.com/podcast. This is from Brianna in Rhode Island. Hi, Danny. I have a question about expanding our master bathroom, which is just way too small. On the other side of the bathroom wall is a half bath, so we'd like to combine the 2 spaces to make 1 large master bath. Is that advisable? And if so, how difficult a project is this? Well, Brianna, I have done this many times, but you have to ask yourself a couple different things, and one has to do with resale. When you create a nice master bathroom, that is a great selling point if and when you ever decide to sell your home, but losing one of the bathrooms will move that number down just a little bit in some cases, so you might want to check with a couple real estate agents for that perspective on this particular project. Now, when you're dealing with combining 2 bathrooms like that, you're talking about a lot of plumbing, and if you're on a wood subfloor, that certainly makes relocating and reallocating that plumbing a lot easier than if you're on a slab. But the most important thing that you need to do is to get that design, and I would have as someone, an interior designer, an architectural designer, or an architect, show a nice floor plan of what it looks like now, and then show what the renovated floor plan would look like, and then get a couple contractors, remodeling contractors, to take a look at it and get you some ballpark prices to make sure you're going in the right direction. Bathrooms, remodeling is pretty expensive, so you'll have to consider all of those factors. But Joe, when you hear this description of this floor plan,
Right.
I'm sure, you can think of friends' houses that are just that way. And, you have that little guest bathroom and then you have the master, and boy, it'd be nice to put it all together. But there's really a lot of things to consider on convenience for, say, a guest bathroom,
Right.
and a lot of different things like that. You don't want to end up with an awkward floor plan just so that you have a nice master bath.
Right. Well, Brianna's in Rhode Island, so I assume this is a wood-framed house and she's not on a slab, but she doesn't say whether it's on the first or second floor. Certainly, if she's on the first floor and there's a basement below or crawl space below, it makes it a lot easier. And the other good news about joining two bathrooms into one large space is you already have all the plumbing there, and the electrical cables are there, and drain pipes and everything else, water supply pipes. They may have to be rerouted a little bit, but at least they're there. You probably won't be needing to run any new ones from from the electrical panel or from the water pump or anything else. So so that's the good news. But you're right. I think you have to take down all those walls, the walls in between, and strip all the other walls, because you probably want to redo all the surfaces, and then decide, okay, well, you don't need two toilets, obviously. So what are you going to do with that piping, and where are you going to, and that's the other thing is when you're ever remodeling, or in this case, enlarging a bathroom, try not to move the toilet. It's a lot easier to move some of the other things, even a tub, because you might be replacing it with a shower or something like that. But try not to, live with at least one of the toilets. Brianna has the option of keeping one toilet in its original position, which will save her a lot on the plumbing cost.
There you go. So just take it easy. Get that plan. Maybe get a preliminary price from a remodeling contractor, because the price can create a little bit of sticker shock in those type of remodeling projects. But if it looks good and you feel good about it and you're not going to hurt your resale on it, full speed ahead. Right now, we're going back to the hotline, and we'd love to hear from you on the hotline, 800-946-4420. That's where we have Cindy from Metairie, Louisiana. Cindy, I hope you're having a good day, and tell us what's going on around your house there.
Well, hi. Thanks for taking my call. I have a two-part question, and the first part is, what should be installed first, the newly cut and fitted baseboard or the new laminate floor planks? And also, should those baseboards be painted before or after installation?
Okay. Hey, that's great. I like this question. So I assume this is this new construction or something that you're remodeling?
This is a remodel.
Okay. So you have new baseboards you're putting in, and you have a new floor going in.
Yes.
Boy, it sounds like you're getting close on that little project to wrapping it up there. So,
I hope so.
So on the baseboards, you are planning on painting those. You're not staining them, so you're painting them.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I would absolutely prime and paint those. I would go ahead and put primer and 2 coats of paint on it. So essentially you'll have that finished. That way you can let it dry sufficiently. And I'll tell you, putting the floor down before the baseboards is great. Normally in a remodeling situation, you don't have that opportunity because, a lot of times you're just removing the floor and utilizing the same baseboards. But, you'll just want to remember on the laminate floor, it needs a little room to move, so you don't want to get it too tight against that wall. You want to leave it off just a little bit, but that'll be completely covered when you put the baseboards on. Now, once you put the baseboards on and recess your nails, then you'll want to come back with just a little bit of sandable putty, some painter's putty that you can put over the nail holes, and then you'll have just a little bit of paint touch-up. But what you won't have is all of that cutting in that can really take a lot of time, and what you'll end up with is these nice, straight, clean edges, just like a pro did, because you're a pro floor installer at this point. So that's what I would do. Now, the other thing, too, is by doing it this way, you're not having to use shoe molding unless you want to. Shoe molding does add an element there that I kind of like. But if you have your baseboards that cover the gap that you'll leave there for expansion and contraction, there's really no need to put any shoe molding in, and you'll be finished once you have that done.
Well, that sounds good.
So knock it out this weekend, and that way you can start moving all the furniture in on Sunday, and it'll all be great.
Yes, hopefully.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you for being a part of the show today, and hope the project goes really well for you.
Thanks.
Joe, I don't think we've gotten that question before.
No.
A lot of new questions that we're getting this week, but I'd almost say that's a luxury when you have that situation. And a lot of times people will automatically put that floor down. Put the molding down and paint it and do all of that. But so often, if you have this opportunity that Cindy has to prime and paint that trim and allow it to dry well, man, those lines are so nice and clean where it meets the wall and so forth. And boy, that's the way to go.
Yeah, and if you're going to put down baseboard, I would highly recommend buying the primed, finger-jointed baseboard. And this way you don't even really have to prime it. You just put on a couple of coats of top coat, and that'll save you. But yeah, always paint that trim before you put it down. You might be you can put up on sawhorses, not on your hands and knees trying to cut in around the wall and the floor and everything. So yeah, definitely paint it before you install it.
Joe, a lot of times we throw out different terms and all, and I think sometimes we have to step back and explain some of the things. Why don't you explain about finger jointed? This is something that's been around a long time, but for someone that may not quite be familiar with the term, this is a very economical way of using our resources and very, very well accepted.
Yeah, whenever you're putting up any kind of trim that's going to be painted, not stained, but painted, you can buy finger jointed. And all that means is at the factory, at the mill where they're making this molding, they can use shorter pieces and they can cut out all the knots so it's very clear, 100% clear. And the finger joint is just the joint that they cut with a machine. And it's hard to describe it on the radio, but it's essentially like if you imagine taking your hands and putting them together so the fingers interlock. That's basically what it looks like. And so they can make molding, first of all, they can make it 16, 18 foot long. And if you look closely, it's hard to see it if it's been primed. But if you look closely, it might be 10 boards or 8 boards all finger jointed together. But the idea is, again, that you can use wood you wouldn't ordinarily be able to use because it had a lot of knots in it. They just cut out the knots. So it's pretty economical. Comes in great lengths and primed, ready for paint.
There you go. Just want to kind of break it down for you. And anytime that you have any question on anything that we talk about, that's where the hotline is a very easy way of finding out any information you need. 800-946-4420 or send us an email at todayshomeowner.com/ask. Speaking of emails, we have one here from Gina from Arkansas. We're planning on remodeling our kitchen by painting the cabinets and adding a backsplash. We know how to do all of that stuff ourselves, but what we can't figure out is our countertops. We have laminate countertops. It's the old butcher block pattern from the 80s, and we'd really like granite, but it's not really in our budget right now. Do you have any tricks or ideas to update them without spending a fortune? Gina, yes, I do, because we've done this recently on one of our projects on the Today's Homeowner television show, and you just have no idea how common this situation is. Replacing countertops in a kitchen is not only expensive, it can put your kitchen out of commission for a while because they have to remove the old tops before they can template the new ones. Then you have to wait while they fabricate before any of it can be installed, and unfortunately that process can take several weeks. When people are in the spot that you are, I often recommend a coating kit to update the existing countertop with a new look. Now, in fact, there's a brand new one out from our friends at Deitch Coatings. If you've been listening to the Today's Homeowner television show, you know we talk a lot about Deitch, and that's a D-A-I-C-H. And they have a brand new one out called Lux Rock Solid Surface Granite Countertop Kit. Now, the kit includes the primer coat, stone coats, clear epoxy, and a clear coat finish, plus all the tools you need to do the project. And the thing I like about it is it's not just a faux finish paint kit. This revolutionary coating contains a blend of real stone that shows up as a gorgeous mineral highlight and makes the surface far more durable than just simple paint. Obviously, it's less expensive than granite or solid surface material, and it's perfect for a project that you complete in just one weekend. You need to check it out. Look at all the videos and all the information they have waiting on you right now at DeitchCoating.com. Big believer in that, and you can get the feel and look of granite. Pretty impressive. Check it out at DeitchCoatings.com. I can tell you one thing. We have some of the greatest listeners Joe, that's no surprise to you.
Not at all.
Every week, we're so privileged to be able to talk to, just some great people that are real home enthusiasts, and we're about to be joined by one right now. Mark is in Palatka, Florida. He's known around there as my buddy Mark with his handyman service and so forth. Hey, Mark, thanks so much for being with us on the show today, and tell us what's going on around your place there.
Not much. I'm retired, but I still paint because Social Security don't really cut it.
I got you.
I'm doing well for myself. I just have a little tip. I heard you last week, and I listen to you every weekend.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah, it's like clock. I have to listen, otherwise something's wrong.
I wish everybody felt that way. That sounds good. So you've been painting a while, so you have a tip to help us out on painting doors.
Yes, I do. I heard you a couple of weeks back about somebody that wanted to paint the doors. You mentioned about putting carpet down on your horses, and then I ain't one to watch paint dry. So here's my trick.
Okay.
You need 3 3-inch screws.
All right.
On the very top of the door or the bottom, it doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the face of the door, but on the jamb part of the door. You put a 3-inch screw roughly in the center, one in the center, and put it in about 1.5 inches. That leaves 1.5 inches of the screw sticking out, okay? Then, on the other side of the bottom part of the door, or the top, it don't matter, about 4 inches in, you don't have to measure, put 2 3-inch screws in the door, and then leave them sticking out 1.5 inches. Then what you do is you put the door on your horses resting on the screws.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
And then paint one side. Then what you do is simply grab the 2 screws, flip the door over because it's sitting on the 3rd screw, and then you can paint the other side without wasting any time or damaging your fine paint job that you did on the other.
Well, I tell you what, painting a door horizontally like that is, to me, is, of course, a heck of a lot easier, and you can see it better and reach everything a lot better, but that works out pretty good. So you just grab those 2 screws and use the other almost as a pivot point.
Correct.
To rotate it around to paint the other side so that you're not having to wait for paint to dry, as you say.
Correct, and it doesn't touch anything, and you can use it on interior doors, exterior doors. Usually an exterior door has a color on the outside and a different color on the inside.
Uh-huh.
It works just as well.
There you go. Well, when you do a lot of painting and try to make a little money along the way, you learn these kind of tricks, and this will certainly help out a lot of our listeners that may be about to approach the same kind of project. So I appreciate you sharing that with us, Mark, and hope everything continues to go well for you.
Well, thank you very much. And like I say, I'm here for you guys. I listen all the time. Most of this stuff I know, but I learn a lot.
Good.
There you go.
All right.
I appreciate talking to you. You guys are awesome, and you have a great day.
Okay, you as well, Mark. Joe, we've talked many, many times about how many painting tips are out there.
That's right.
And how, we could write a book about that. We've got a lot of books we have to write. Let's see, we have to
I like
write.
the way you say we.
Yeah, we. See, we got a lot of books we got to write. We got to put together the 5-volume edition of the best of to Simple Solutions. That's one. And then painting tips. Let's see. Oh, the old pool noodle book. We got that. We've got to do. And then spend quality time with white vinegar. We got that one. That's
right.
a little mystery thing that we want to do. So yeah, we got a lot of different books that we can write along those lines.
Yeah, and I've often said of all the simple solutions, probably more painting simple solutions than any, and which makes sense because there's a lot of ways to paint, and most people are looking for a quick way, but also a neat way. It's very easy to make a mess painting. And, and painting is a kind of job most people do themselves. You can always hire a pro, of course, but a lot of people do their own painting, but maybe not so many people. We might have several tips on framing a wood wall, but maybe there aren't that many people who frame wood walls, but certainly everybody paints. So yeah, if you're looking for painting tips, go to today'shomeowner.com/simple solutions. You'll find dozens and dozens of painting tips, very, very much like the one Mark just told us about.
That's exactly right. Now, speaking of Simple Solution, which is brought to you every week by my buddy, Joe Truini. Joe, what do you have this week?
All right, Danny, taking inside measurements with a measuring tape requires you to bend the tape and then make educated but not always accurate guess at what the distance is between the two surfaces. So here's an easy, accurate way to take inside measurements. Use a binder clip, one of those metal binder clips, to clamp a credit card onto the tape measure. And then when you take the measurement, simply slide the card up against the inside surface. And now remove the tape. And when you straighten out the tape, just read the dimension right where the tape crosses the edge of the credit card. And that'll be the exact inside dimension. Got that?
That's pretty good. I can envision that. So it's a little hard to think about it, but
Yeah.
I can see exactly what you're talking about and clamping it and seeing exactly.
Right.
I could have used that yesterday when I was measuring some columns.
Okay.
You know, and you have measuring under the beam and down.
Right.
And I got it, and I just made my best guess on it, and I just took some aviation shears and just cut the tape in half. And then I held it up. I said, well, that's it then. But I had 4 columns and 4 25-foot tapes I cut in half.
Good,
so,
yeah.
you know, but I got an accurate cut on it, and the columns look great.
Beautiful. Danny believes in I cut it twice and it's still too short. That's the way he works.
Well, that's great, and we have the video out on that.
Yeah, right now you can go to the website and see that. That's right.
That's right, todayshomeowner.com. Those are good, though, Joe, because that's one of those things. That's a perfect example of a good, simple solution because it's something that just kind of plagues you, and you kind of get used to, okay, well, I got to round up an eighth of an inch on that, or I have to, try this, or most often, you just cut it too long,
right?
Because you don't want to have to, do something. And if you got a 6x6 column like I had,
right,
you really don't want to cut it more than once.
Well, I'll share another simple solution that I've used several times, including most recently, to get an accurate inside dimension with just the tape measure. Is I'll measure, let's say it's about 3 foot wide, the inside between like door jambs or window jambs, whatever. I'll measure it and I'll make a mark at some really like a whole dimension, like let's say at 30 inches. I'll just make a perfectly square little line there. So that's 30 inches. Then I measure from the other end. And then let's say it's 4.5. Then you know it's exactly 34.5. Mm-hmm. So you're taking those 2 dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's pretty accurate, assuming you're marking it accurately. That's a pretty accurate way to do that.
Yeah, I love all the tips we've mentioned before. When I remember when I was just starting to learn a lot of the tricks and ways of doing carpentry work and a lot of repairs and so forth. I was working with a gentleman that was like he was 70 years old, something like that, and old Mr. Vic. And this guy was a real slender guy, wore those old overalls. He was probably 6'5", something like that.
Wow.
Probably weighed 110 pounds. But he was so efficient in every single thing he did. Never got in a hurry, but every move he made, he would take that wood, put it on the sawhorse, he would cut it, go right into what we were doing, and never wasted any movement at all. I learned a tremendous amount from that guy. But I remember he would say, watch this, let me show you this. And he would show me one little thing, and it was like he gave me a piece of gold.
Right.
And it was something that I've used, and I think about old Mr. Vic, a lot of times over the years. And heck, that was 40 years ago.
Wow.
And thinking about all these little tricks and these little tips of how you do that, leverage, how to do this, cutting. It's just one thing I do now. Every time I pick up a handsaw, which nowadays, you don't really use handsaws that much, but every now and then you have, something that you want to cut
Sure.
without, hooking up your saw. And to point your finger, just like, you're pointing at something.
Along the side of the handle, right? Yeah.
Around the side of the handle. And then he said, just point that finger right at that line while you're sawing, and you will cut it right on the line. I'm telling you, that was just like, man, I can conquer the world now with this. Right. And, those kind of little things like that is what really hooks you into this type of thing. But, hey, we've got a lot of things that we can share with you as we do each and every week. And if you have any questions for us, any comments, any suggestions about our podcast, we're certainly open to receive and read each and every one of them. Again, that's todayshomeowner.com/podcast. Hey, thanks so much for being with us here on the Today's Homeowner podcast. I'm Danny Lipford, along with my buddy Joe Truini. We'll talk with you soon.